You will be trained in theory. You're going to take a first-year theory course that PhDs take here, an asset pricing theory. And at first you might think, how is this going to be relevant to me making money in finance or helping my clients to achieve their wealth goals? It will make sense eventually. It's important background material. The economics, the underlying theory is important, okay? We'll also develop a lot of methods and applications in data science. You'll see that today from Brian Kelly. We're going to try to use the state-of-the-art techniques. And as Emily mentioned, and Anjani mentioned too, we also think a unique feature of this program is some of the business side of things, okay? Which is, at the end of the day, you have a fiduciary responsibility to your clients, and that's critically important, okay? And dealing with clients and how you deal with them, something that I've learned working with AQR is something you don't get from a typical academic curriculum, incredibly important to your careers, okay? Also, if there are no clients, there's no job, right? That's what it comes down to. And how you deal with clients and how you work with them, okay? As opposed to thinking of them as a nuisance or an adversary or something you have to deal with. When you work with them, it's a much, much better and stronger business. And there are lots of lessons you can learn there. In addition, we'll have a course on the legal environment taught from a professor in the law school, okay? The famous Yale Law School. That's important, especially in today's investment landscape. And we want to have the very best in the business talking about that. And right now we're asking John Macy from the Yale Law School to teach it. He's got a great course. He brings in ex-insider traders who've spent time in prison. Great lessons to learn on what not to do. Okay? It's always the same story, by the way. I never thought I'd get here, right? Kept redrawing the line. So those kinds of things are really, really important, especially early on in your careers, to know what this landscape looks like, right? As well as lots of other issues that academics don't get to talk about, implementation and risk. So I can talk all day about how to build portfolios theoretically, use the data science to get the right answer, and this is the best thing to go with. But then when you actually try to do it in markets, it's not so simple, right? You've got all kinds of frictions, trading costs, taxes, regulation, compliance, clients, and their biases and their needs and their different preferences, and how you manage all that. That's something that we're going to bring in experts from the outside, not just academics, to talk about. Really, really important stuff. Now, as you might imagine, the first half of the year, it's going to be much more theory and methodology heavy. Second half, more on the applied side, but you're going to see all that. And let me go through the curriculum so I can talk a bit more about that. But the main thing I want you to walk away from, whatever curriculum I show you today, the most important thing and the thing that's going to launch your careers and get you good jobs as well is teach you how to think. Okay, so we're going to cover whatever we think are the best topics today. Those will probably change over the next 5, 10 years. There'll be some differences. But if you can leave this institution knowing how to think and apply your knowledge, you'll be prepared for whatever changes. Okay? So that's really the key. When you're going through this program, just think about, how is this changing the way I approach problems, the way I solve them? And the new problems 5 years from now are going to be different than the ones you're solving today, but you're going to have the same tools to be able to attack them. And that, I think, is the main message. Okay? Okay, so types of students. As I mentioned, I won't say this again, but recent undergrads, less than a couple years experience. Those of you that are thinking about masters from statistics or computer science or applied math, this is also a viable option. Global, we're looking for a class to represent us globally. We'll take all students from all geographies. But I do want to mention, this is very different from the typical MBA or executive MBA profile, okay? Think of, the MBA program is a wonderful program, but is a program that trains people to be managers and to be very broad, to cover lots of different areas of business. Incredibly valuable set of skills, but a different job. This is going to be a much more narrow program, but very deep, focused exclusively on asset management, having a career in asset management, and especially on the research side. Obviously some business development there too, but mostly on the research side. So very different programs, very different profiles, right? The MBA comes in with experience of 5 years or more. Here you don't need any experience, okay? Or at least very little. And then the executive MBA, we have an executive MBA asset management program. That's for much more senior people with a lot more experience who are thinking about either career switches or doing something more high level on the business side of asset management. Now, I think there'll be great synergies between you guys and those much more senior executive MBAs, but very different skill levels, right? This is going to be much more focused on the quantitative and data science aspect and research aspect, but combining that with people who've got years of experience on the business side, we think there'll be some great synergies. So one thing, for instance, is when we bring in outside speakers, both groups are going to want to meet with those speakers, and we're going to facilitate that. And there are going to be some people who are here getting their executive MBA that work at firms in pretty high positions that you may want jobs at. It's a great networking opportunity. And they're, by the way, looking for talent all the time. So I think it's a great opportunity to leverage that Yale network that we have here at SOM. Okay, let me talk a bit about, I've already mentioned some of this, but how different this is from Masters of Finance programs, okay? The key difference, okay, is that we're focused on the practice of asset management. I don't know of any other program that does that. There are some very good Masters of Finance programs, and they do have courses that deal with asset management, but they're much more about, they have corporate finance pieces, entrepreneurial finance pieces, all good things. This program is not about that. It's really about asset management and the practice of it as opposed to just the theoretical side. Okay? And I've looked at the other competing programs. They're great programs, but they're different, okay, on that dimension. The other unique piece, as I mentioned, is this collaboration with practice. So David Swenson, huge part of that, but the fact that we're located here in New Haven, close to the AQRs in Greenwich, the Bridgewaters in Westport, as well as New York City, we're going to leverage that. And we can leverage that because of, I have a few connections, but David in particular has a lot of connections, and we're going to bring those people to campus. Okay? Often, by the way, I can tell you this, I hope I don't get myself into trouble, but academic faculty often are a little worried about bringing in practitioners to teach the courses, right? Because we view ourselves as we want to be just pure academic science. I give Yale SOM credit and my colleagues here credit, recognizing that this field is particularly applied. We have to have some of these practitioners in here, and we get the right ones in, it's going to be great. So some of the, take David, for instance, trained as an academic, under James Tobin, the Nobel Prize winner here at Yale, and applied that to a career in asset management. There's lots of people that are going to be like that. We have, for instance, my colleague at AQR, Andrea Frazzini, was a professor with me at the University of Chicago for 6 years before he bolted for practice. He'll be teaching in this program. He understands both worlds, and it's going to be that merging that's going to be very valuable. Okay. And by the way, no one else has David Swenson, so let's just say that loud and clear, okay? All right. So the other thing is, what this does is it's going to provide a set of courses that I think are pretty unique. So you're going to get the standard asset pricing theory and asset pricing methods. There's not too many places that have state-of-the-art machine learning data science, but there are some. We certainly have it with Brian Kelly and some other colleagues, but MIT has it too. They've got some great people there, no question about it. What I think is different that nobody else has is some of these practical courses. The portfolio management course that I'll talk about in just a second, it takes the tools you're going to learn in the first half of the year. This is a course jointly taught by Will Getzman, who's a professor here, and Osman Nalbanoglu, who's on the investment committee at Bridgewater. They're going to talk to you about how to build portfolios in practice from start to finish. Take the model, apply it, use implementation methods to figure out what the expected trading costs are, size it in terms of capacity, do a business assessment of what the competitors are that are out there, figure out what your clients' needs are and how to meet them, and put that whole thing together. And I'll tell you, from where you start to where you end, there's a lot of things to do, all right? And that's something that you're not going to get at any other institution that I'm aware of. Okay? And I've looked at some of the courses that are there. It's something that most academics can't give you. And the combination of having an academic here, Will, and Osman, who does this for a living at the largest hedge fund in the world, is going to be pretty powerful. Same thing with things like alternative asset classes. David has pioneered the idea of investing in private equity, buyouts, natural resources, all kinds of things. And he's done this so successfully, and he knows the best in the business at this. He's going to bring them in to talk about this. I don't know how to buy almond trees, right? It's just one example. Things of that nature, how to assess them, where to get the good data, where to build a model to do this. You're going to see some things like that, which is really interesting. And those types of investments are are very neat and very different and a unique advantage. I already mentioned the legal landscape in the Yale Law School. We're gonna partner with them for a course, as well as risk management will be part of implementation. And then I've also got two of my colleagues at AQR are gonna teach a really cool course on ESG investing. So everyone familiar with ESG? Environmental, social, governance type investing. It's a hot topic. It's a debatable topic. I'm not sure it makes sense, but I'm happy to have this debate, okay? And I'm saying that to be honest here, which is that there is this debate. It's going on in Europe, it's going on in Australia, it's starting to go on here in the United States. It's something people care about. It's something people care about, but how well it works with investment analysis remains an open question. And I've got two of my colleagues, they were actually former students of mine, Lukasz Pomorski, who's a managing director at AQR, head of ESG investing there, and Marina Neisner, who used to be a professor here at Yale, now works at AQR. They're going to teach a great course on this where they're going to challenge you to think about, well, what are the trade-offs? Everything in economics is about trade-offs. If we care about these things, ES and G, what does it cost us? Should it cost us something? Can we do good and do well? The answer is yes. Can we do good without sacrificing any cost? Probably not, okay? But how we manage that, how we think about it, I think is a really important concept. And as I said, today, the hot topic is ESG. 10 years from now, might be a different set of issues. In fact, we have a tough time defining what is it in S that people actually care about. It's changing all the time, right? But the tools you'll have, the tools you'll be armed with to deal with that are going to be incredibly important. And so that's what you're going to get out of a course like that. I don't know that another course like that exists, not at this level. So that's something that I think is pretty exciting. Okay, and I mentioned proximity and the networks that you'll get here at Yale. We think is going to be really valuable as well. And also, I should mention too, internship opportunities, and I'll come back to this in a second. You know, the connections with the EMBA students, with the Yale network, and with everybody you're going to be interacting here at SOM also is going to help in terms of facilitating that. Yes?
Actually, I have a question about the internship thing. Because from my understanding, that usually programs 1.5 or 2 years. So basically, first summer you do internship, the next year you return as a full-time.
Right.
But for this, it's 1 year program.
It's 1 year. I'll get to that in just a second. We're going to try to facilitate that. Let me come to that in a second. So, okay, and we already talked about the broader role for society, something that we're interested here as our mission here at Yale. Okay. So the other thing that I would say is a unique feature, and I'll come back to the internship in just a second when I go through the curriculum. But how are we doing on time? When do you want me to be done? Okay, good. So the other thing that I think is missing from a lot of these programs, or at least not given enough attention to, is data-driven problem solving, okay? I'll be honest, my frustration with a lot of the Masters in Finance programs, even the ones we initially talked about at Chicago 10 years ago, they're mostly financial engineering and financial mathematics programs. And I gotta be honest with you, nobody uses that stuff anymore, okay? We hire from those programs at AQR because the students are smart. They can do math. The skills that they actually learn in those courses are not that useful to our day-to-day. It is useful to solve some math and be able to do some statistics, no question about it. It's not what I'm saying. But would you be that much better off doing that versus, say, a master's in applied math? Probably not that different, okay, or engineering. What we want to do in this program is do a bit of both. You will solve plenty of equations in this program, I promise you, and do a lot of statistics and a lot of math, but it's going to be applied. It's going to be applied in a way where it's useful and where you can, and in particular, the data-driven aspect. My course, which is on factor investing, which is the backbone of what we do at AQR, it's actually not, from a math perspective, it's very easy. Okay? Do a little matrix algebra, some calculus, that's about it. Okay? Heavy, though, on the data science. And that's the part that, not that I'm saying these are complicated tools or methods, but how you think about them. Just thinking about what goes on the left and right-hand side of a regression is not an easy problem. Okay? And just understanding that, it's going to be very useful. And I don't think that's paid enough attention to in these courses, in these other programs. Okay? And the reason I say that is, when we hire from these programs, my job at AQR is to train people to do things like that. And they're always amazed at, like, wow, I wish we'd gotten this when we were in the program, right? I'm learning it as we speak now, and they're perfectly capable of doing it. So we're going to force you to do that. That's going to be a big part of this. Another nice feature that we're going to leverage our contacts in industry is we're going to have a course called the Asset Management Colloquium. Okay, so it's a series of colloquia where you're going to get to hear from some of the most famous investors one-on-one. They're going to come to a class that's going to be smaller than this, because I don't. We'll see how big the program gets. But it'll be an intimate session with David and I facilitating it, bringing in some of the best of the business. So I've already twisted Cliff Assis's arm to speak. We're going to get David's going to get Nancy Zimmerman to come in and speak. I'm just throwing off a few names here. I don't know if you know any of these investors, but they're pretty famous investors. And they're going to come in and talk about, a little bit about their careers, but also about some of the topics of the day, whatever they want. And you're going to get some one-on-one interaction with them. And that's something that we're pretty excited about, something that certainly David can help a ton with. Okay? As I mentioned, different from financial engineering and financial mathematics. There'll be a component of that in this program, but much more geared towards data science and applying this stuff in practice. Okay? So it is applied asset management, still a lot of math, programming, data, and rigor, but state-of-the-art and useful. Okay? And it is true that back when I got my PhD in the mid-90s, what Wall Street firms were hiring were PhDs who could solve partial differential equations. You don't need to do that by hand anymore. It's not even that useful anymore in terms of, in fact, how we price options, because solving those partial differential equations was useful in options under a strong set of assumptions. You don't need to make assumptions these days. You simulate a ton of stuff. That's what you're going to learn to do. You can simulate the entire option surface across millions and millions of possible prices and figure out what the methods are. In fact, Steve Ross, the famous economist, one of his last papers before he sadly passed away a year and a half ago, was actually he invented the option pricing framework theoretically, and was currently using methods from computer science to actually price options differently using data, right? Completely changed the way he did things. Those are the kinds of things that we're going to bring to the classroom that we want you to walk away with, okay? And as I mentioned, the importance of economic first principles are key. You're going to see that from day one when David and I teach the first principles course, and it's going to be throughout all these courses. And you're going to see a common theme. Whether you're talking to the Bridgewater guys, the AQR guys, the Cyrus guys that David brings in, they're all going to come back to basic economics, and that's going to be a common thread across all this. Okay, which is why I think, by the way, these programs are best coming from a business school with economic grounding, right, versus, say, a math department that can solve the math but is missing that bigger piece. Okay? Okay, so what are the advantages of doing this versus going through your in-house training program? So in addition to other Masters of Finance programs, you might just think, why don't I just get a job? I'll go to Goldman, they'll train me for a year, and I'm 1 year better off in terms of in terms of my seniority there. Well, we view this as a substitute, and I would argue a better substitute from the typical firm boot camp that you're going to get. For one, less idiosyncratic knowledge and more mobility. The fact of the matter is you're unlikely to stay at your first job for 20 years. It's probably going to be, I think the average is like 3, all right? So that's neither good nor bad. It's just the nature of the industry. So getting a broad set of skills, I think, is useful. We also think, this is one of David's main points, we have the opportunity to do this right. Now, there's differences in quality and training across firms, as you might imagine. And I would argue lower quality than you get from Yale University. I don't think that's an arrogant statement. I think that's what we do. It's not their primary function. Just like I don't think, except for David, I don't think we as faculty invest as well as those institutions. This is not what we do, right? So we have the opportunity to do this right, and do this right in 2 ways. Not just in terms of the rigor and the academics, but also in the general broader societal responsibility of how to do this right? The reason I want John Macy to bring in ex-cons from insider trading, right? I want you guys to see, holy crap, look at what can go wrong. And these are not bad people often when you meet them. They just ended up in a really bad situation. You got to avoid that aspect of it. Don't worry, that's a very small part of what we're going to do here, okay? So fiduciary responsibility, ethical investing, very important, okay? And then again, you get a credible degree from Yale, unlike the in-house programs, okay? But the other thing is just think about it from an economic first principles. Why do I say it's not arrogant for Yale to say we can do this better than any firm? It's what we do. We have expertise in it. We are hired based on our teaching ability. So we know how to teach, okay? The average portfolio manager is extremely smart. They don't teach for a living, okay? They're not doing this for a living. And also there's economies of scale. We're doing this across lots of different programs, lots of different students. It's just far more efficient. And a lot of the firms that I've reached out to about this program have said, this makes perfect sense. And we're hoping those firms will not only hire from this program, but are going to send us some of their students as well. Some of you may be even working at some of these firms currently. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the curriculum. I don't know why we have Shane up here. He's not teaching in the program. He's market, you know. So, but he's a good teacher. All right. So here's a schedule of courses. Some of these are going to be required, some electives, and like I said, there's still some negotiation there. We are going to allow other courses. So I'm going to show you the courses we're going to offer here at SOM. There are other courses on campus that we will let you take as substitutes. We have to approve them, but there are some really great courses in the economics department that we're going to cross-list that if you want to take them, absolutely. Computer science, if you want to beef up on that and you want to go into the more computer science, especially if you're into the engineering part of asset management, absolutely. Same with law, math, and stats. So all these things are possible while you're here on campus, okay? But I hope this is going to work. Oh, awesome. Okay. So here's a preliminary. I would say this is probably 90% right. It may change a little bit because we haven't worked out the schedule of classrooms. That's a whole nother issue. But this is what your first fall quarter will look like. We're going to work there's semesters here at Yale, but we're going to work in 4 half semesters just to kind of keep it organized. The first fall, there'll be no choice. Okay, these will all be required. As far as and that's, I think, a good thing. It's a great way for you guys to spend 7 weeks together and get to know each other. It's a cohort type of feeling, and you're going to get all the basic stuff that we think you have to have. Okay, so it's going to start with a very high-level course by David and I. We'll take it easy on you, Asset Management First Principles. David and I will tell some stories. It'll be better than that. We'll give you some rigor in terms of here are the main things that we think are key that you're going to see throughout this curriculum. All right. Then you're going to get from Stefano Giglio a hardcore course in asset pricing theory. You're going to be sitting there, our PhD students are going to be taking this at the same time. It's going to be PhD type level asset pricing theory, really foundational type stuff. You're going to get a course from me on quantitative investing, which is going to apply some of those methods simultaneously. You'll be working on this concurrently and catching up. It'll all make sense at the end, I hope. Yes?
Are these courses going to be taught like sequentially or concurrently? Like will we be taking these classes all at the same time or?
No, so fall 1, you're going to take all 5 of those classes. Yeah. Concurrent, so you're going to take them concurrently. And it's going to be, an intense, you're going to get theory and practice all at the same time. You're going to be trying to resolve between the two. And that's how it's going to work, right? So for instance, in my quant course, you're going to be learning about asset pricing theory at the same time, and I'm going to be talking about some of the methods. And by, say, week 3 or 4, you're going to realize, oh, wait a minute, all the stats we've been learning has been directly applied to estimating the stuff that we've been doing in this theory course. Now we're going to start doing it, okay? So it's going to be sort of like that. That's how we're going to try it. We're going to see how it goes. But I can tell you this, that we do this currently. So the asset pricing theory and the quant investing course I currently teach. And we have a lot of students that are taking them at the same time. And then you're going to get, at the same time, you're going to get some methods from Brian Kelly, financial econometrics, and statistical tools that you're going to need. And then we're also going to throw in here from Michael Schmertzler, one of David's colleagues, and they worked together for a long time on fundamental investment analysis, okay, which is not the quant approach, but how to pull apart financial statements and look at deals and figure out how to value stuff. And like I said, these first 5 weeks, you're going to be learning lots of tools, and you may not appreciate initially how they're all going to fit together, but it's going to start to converge as you get to the end of those first 7 weeks. The second 7 weeks picks up on that and starts to make it all make sense, which is the second half of my course in quant investing, which is applying all these things. Brian Kelly continuing his course on financial econometrics with a heavy dose in that second half on machine learning and big data. Swenson's going to throw his ring into the hat with an endowment management course, which is using these principles for what he does in managing a large institution. You've got Schmertzler's second half of his course, which is continuing the investment analysis, but applying it directly to places where you don't get data, like private equity. How do you do that? Okay, and that's going to be very valuable to those of you that want to go into that industry. And then there's a little bit of electives there. In fact, Swenson's and advanced derivatives courses are electives. And this is going to start to allow people to, if they want to go the more quant route, you're going to head towards the derivatives. If you want to go the other route, you might head in the other direction, but you can start to separate a little bit. And then in the spring, a lot more choice. There'll be, right now, we're going to require the behavioral finance course from Nick Barbaras. I think that's critically important to learn behavioral finance topics. By the way, Nick Barbaras is the world's expert in this stuff. He currently runs the National Bureau of Economic Research's Behavioral Finance Group. Okay, so the NBR appointed in Washington, the head of NBR, and then it's appointed by faculty across the world who say who's the person that ought to run this group. So Nick has been running that for about 6 years now. And by the way, the best teacher I've ever seen. And easy for me to say that because that was true at Chicago when we were at the at institution together. It's been true here. He's amazing. So you're going to get behavioral finance from Nick, but other than that, a lot of the other courses are going to be electives, including the ESG course that you see there, fixed income strategies, portfolio management and practice. This is that course I was mentioning by Getzman and now Bondaglu. They're going to focus on the investment side in the first half, and in the second half on the practice of asset management. And this part's really cool. On the second half, so the first half is going to be taking the tools you learned, how do you actually solve problems for your clients and build portfolios and apply them and trade them and manage the risk. The second half is thinking about the organization too. How do you retain top talent? How do you, how do you think about the operational risk of the firm and all kinds of other things? And Osman is really an expert on this stuff. It's going to be a very cool course. I've got two of my colleagues from AQR talking about hedge fund strategies. We've got risky credit from one of David's investors at Cyrus, a principal at Cyrus, John Rappaport, and macro strategies. So in the spring, other than behavioral finance, you're going to, and actually I think we're going to make everyone take the legal course too. But you're going to have a lot of electives to choose from in terms of, what you want to specialize in. Some of you want to specialize in fixed income markets. Great. You could combine the fixed income course with the risky credit course, with the derivatives course, and by the way, take some of the courses we offer in systemic risk, like from Bill English's monetary policy course. He's a former board of governor at the Fed, and he teaches an amazing course on monetary policy. Or take Tim Geithner's course, who teaches here with Andrew Metrick, if you want to go that route. Okay? I would also probably include the macro strategy course there if you want to do that. If you want to go to the private equity route, you would take Schmertzler's courses, and you would take you might take the ESG course, and you might take the portfolio management course, and some of those to put all those tools together. If you're going to go equities, again, there'd be a slightly different combination. And if you don't know what you're going to do, that's the whole point of making the first semester required, right? Get the basics on everything for those first 5 courses in fall 1, and then start to realize, well, what do I like and what do I think I want to do? So it expands in terms of the options later on in the year. I mentioned the boot camp at the beginning of the year, 1 week in computer programming and financial accounting, just to get people up to speed with some basics. If you've had it before, that's fine. It's not bad to have a refresher. The other piece that I'm going to mention, so here's some other courses you could take that are perfectly good substitutes. I mentioned Bill English's monetary policy. We're going to make this available, by the way, so at some point on the website, hopefully soon. But I'm nodding to Emily. It's me that's the holdup. I'm just tinkering with this. So you can take a look and look at these courses. It's also the case that you can, if you click a link on any of these things, you get bios on each of the professors. So there's David Swenson's bio. That's an abridged version, but you get the idea. Okay, mine's up here. But I hope you'll be impressed with the bios that we've put together, because we're excited about it. Now the other thing is, let me talk a little bit. I was going to do this in the slides, but I might as well do it right here. Mentioned internships. Between fall and spring, so the fall semester is going to end, what is it? It's like early December, like December 10th, something like that. And we don't begin again until the end of January. So what we're going to do in terms of internships is we want students to take a 5 or 6 week internship right in the middle there. Okay, and I know MIT does this as well, although theirs is an 18-month program. And the idea is if you can get a 5 or 6 week internship in the middle of the year there, and the career development office is you can use their resources. Obviously, we're going to have the full help from CDO. Then that's a great way to apply what you've learned in the first half, come back, and then bring all that, it's a limited experience in 6 weeks, but not that far off from a lot of summer internships, which are about 8 weeks, at least the ones we run at AQR. And then come back and apply that the rest of the year. So there will be those internship opportunities. Now, there are also several options. That's one option, okay? If you are, this is what we call an experience requirement. If you are currently working and deciding just to come to New Haven let's say 2 days a week, one evening and all day Friday, or it might be 2 evenings and all day Friday, that would count as your practical work experience. You wouldn't have to do an internship at a competing firm. That seems crazy. So that would count for that, okay? If neither of those things can work for you, okay? For instance, if there are, say restrictions in getting an internship in the US or other things, then we also allow you to do an independent project here on campus or a research project with the ICF, which is the International Center for Finance we have here at Yale, or come up with your own idea and just ask me for permission to do it, and we'll approve it, as long as it's a reasonable idea, So that's the idea. But the whole point is to get you some of that practical experience and to get you involved in those firms. Okay? And believe me, when I'm sending out all this material to the firms that I know, I'm asking them specifically, are you going to hire from this program? Will you send us students? And will you consider an internship mid-year that we can send people to for 5 or 6 weeks? Okay? Yeah, question about that.
So you noted that for people who are working full-time, that they have the opportunity to take night classes as well come full-time on Friday. About how many hours per week do you think that?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot. So you're going to take, I think it's going to be 4 classes, right, per week. So they're 3-hour classes. So we don't know how the schedule is going to shake out, but one option would be, obviously you're going to take Friday. That would be 2 classes right there. You take a full day of classes. That'd be 6 hours right there. And it could be 2 other evenings, which might be feasible if you're reasonably close to New Haven. Like I said, it'd be a tough year. Or it could also be, another way to do it would be, if we have a section offered, let's say on a Thursday afternoon and a Thursday evening, you could come Thursday afternoon, evening, stay Friday, and then you're done. That would be the best way to do it. So like I said, it will require, and this is another question that I've asked some of the firms, and certainly AQR has said yes to this, is, if you had students who were doing this, you'd have to let them off Friday and probably early 1 or 2 days during the week. But they'd be really well trained in 9 months, right? So that's a trade-off. So that's the plan. That is the plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, and of course then there's the homework and everything else. Like I said, it's worth it. 9 months, yeah, exactly. I think there were other questions, yes?
Yeah, regarding the Yale's investment office, is there any kind of engagement opportunity, like semester internship with Yale's investment office?
Yes, David plans, he always takes interns from the undergraduate population. He plans to take interns from this population, just like anybody else, provided that they're qualified. And I think, by the way, every year, the top 2 students in my class, I always reach out to and say, hey, what are you doing next year? And they almost always say, yeah, I'm working for David at the Yale Investment Office. He finds them before I can. So yes, he's planning on, there'll be internship opportunities with the Yale Investment Office as well during that time. And that could actually, the nice thing about the Yale Investment Office is that could potentially happen not just during that time. It could happen during the year. Okay, but that's up to them. But that's certainly the plan. Let's put it this way. If that's not happening, then we haven't designed the program right. I mean, David's designed it, right? So he wants students to be able to do that. So that's certainly a possibility.
So kind of to nourish the next generation manager for the YL.
Yeah. I mean, and there have been some very famous people that have gone through internships at the Yale Investment Office and have worked there for some time. So they hire terrific people, and David's hoping that they'll come from this program too. There was another question? No? Yeah.
So you mentioned that we can take like the asset pricing theory class with PhD in 7 weeks. I saw the class usually is structure for one semester. So if we take recent, how does that?
Well, Stefano is either just a great guy or owes me a favor. But what he's going to do is he's going to teach the what he would call the 7 most relevant weeks for people in this program, which will be at the PhD level. So what that will most likely look like is it will be the first half of his PhD course, right, which will probably be some PhD students plus you guys. And then in the second half, you wouldn't have to take that second half, but the PhDs would, but you certainly could. So the second half of his PhD course would be an absolutely perfect substitute if you wanted it as an elective, if you wanted to, yeah. So I just wanted to mention the PhDs just to give you a sense of the rigor of the kinds of courses that we want here, okay? And that's the sense in which it's very different from other programs. And I think that stuff is really useful. So does David in terms of working in the business. Any other questions about the curriculum? As I said, we'll post this and you can read about the bios of some of these people. We don't have the speaker list yet for the colloquia, but I threw out a few names already of people that we're going to bring. David wants to bring Brad Katsuyama. I don't know if you read the Flash Boys. So he's always interesting and always been very helpful to Yale. So I'm sure he'll come. That'll be a fun one. Yeah, you'll hear David and I. That's one where you'll hear David and I fight about high frequency trading. So, which is always enjoyable. Any other questions about the curriculum? Okay, let me just get back to the slides here. And okay, so I mentioned when the classes are held. And look, this is going to be the first time we try this, so we're going to see how this goes. But I want this to be open feedback as well. So this is why I'm hoping you guys will send me questions. If you're not comfortable asking questions now in front of everybody, please email us and let us know. If you have ideas on how to make it, if you're, for the working students a little bit easier, we're open to them. These are all possible things. I can tell you what constraints we may or may not face. But these are all things, and if you have ideas for internships, we welcome them as well, right? We want this program to evolve. To think we'd be really stupid and arrogant to think that we've gotten everything figured out from day one. We hope to have it mostly there, but we're going to learn as we go. Okay. So I mentioned the courses, the practical experience requirement, the colloquia. So I'm going to skip over this. That's everything I just said. And then the positive externalities, just to wrap up here, is I mentioned there's the networking here at SOM. I want you to take advantage of that. Those of you that, especially those of you that are going to be here on campus more than just a couple of days a week, you have opportunities to join clubs on campus, investment clubs, whether it's at the undergrad or the grad level. There's a lot more top speakers on campus besides just what we'll bring in the colloquium. Take advantage of those. You'll see, I've seen since I've been here, walking around the halls, John Kerry just getting a coffee downstairs. I'm like, what's going on here? This is what it's like to be at Yale, by the way. See, John Kerry, who's the other one? Who's the CNN anchor that is always, Vashin, yeah, he's walking around here. You'll see, top people at BlackRock and I mean, all kinds of people just through the halls here sometimes. And they're usually here giving a talk here at SOM because we have the nicest facilities. And you should take advantage of that. And they're not just from from all over the world as well. Okay. And so that greater network should also help. All right. And then we also think it's going to complement other departments on campus. So we do encourage you, if there's a course that really, fires you up in another department, you can absolutely take it, with approval. We've had some, in other programs, you'd be amazed what people come up with as a substitute for, anyway, I won't get into that. But just off the top of my head, econ department, computer science, applied math, stats, engineering, all reasonable courses. I'm sure I haven't thought of all of them, right? I'm sure departments that I'm not aware of that have a course that could be relevant. For instance, if you're really interested in environmental investing, we have an unbelievable forestry department, right? That has all kinds of interesting, cool stuff going on. That could be very relevant, and I would welcome you taking that course if that's what you want to pursue, okay? And then, as mentioned, interactions with the Yale Investment Office. It won't just be David, his staff too. And some of his staff will come and give talks, like Dean Takahashi or Lisa Howie, and they have a wealth of experience and ideas, and so we'll bring them into the classroom as well. Okay? And some of you may even get to work with them. Okay, in terms of expected outcomes, just to wrap up here, what kind of roles and where in the world, we're thinking this very broadly. By the way, one other reason that we like the 6-week internship in the middle of the year, you want to do your internship in London or Beijing or wherever in the world, go for it. You can do that, right? Because you've got that 6-week hole in the schedule, and that's one of the nice things about that, as opposed to just being local here. So that's certainly possible. But we imagine the career options here will be, a lot of you will go work as research analysts or more likely associates. You'll get promoted up at the master's level rather than start as an analyst. Portfolio management as well, a different kind of research. You might even go into risk management departments. You'll be trained for jobs both on the buy and the sell side. So you might work for firms like AQR, where you're selling products. You might work for endowments or big corporate pension funds, where you're essentially buying those products or being pitched those products. The same skill sets are needed to evaluate them. Hedge funds, mutual funds, endowments, institutions, consultants. I have a good friend who runs the research desk at Cambridge Associates in Boston. He's constantly looking for top people, and he can't compete as well on salary with the hedge funds of the world. He's totally excited about this program for people that want to do that and help firms make better decisions. Even the financial advisory business, you want to deal with high net worth individuals rather than institutions, and retail, perfectly fine. And by the way, I gave a talk last summer at the SEC. They're dying for talent to evaluate investments. So if you want to get into the regulation business, you still got to know these tools as well. So I'm hoping that this will present a broad range of potential opportunities for our students, okay, and everywhere in the world. And by the way, for one or two of you, you might get so turned on by this stuff you decide to stay and get a PhD. That'd be fine by me, okay? In fact, in a lot of master's programs, this happens. And a lot of my current students, one in particular, who I think he's going to be terrific. I think he's going to get a great job at a university. He was an undergrad at Chicago, then worked for me as an analyst at AQR, and decided he after a few years decided he wanted to get a PhD, and is now that experience I think has really helped him. And he told me he wished a program like this had existed back then. He would have done that first. Okay. So how will this program get you there faster? I do think it's equivalent to several years of accumulated benefits on the job. The training programs that you get at these firms, they last a few months, sometimes 6 months to a year, but it's sporadic. It's a course here and there. You're learning on the job, but most of what you're doing is a lot of data work and grinding through stuff, which is useful, but it's not giving you that set of skills. It takes several years to accumulate that. I hope, my optimistic hope here is that doing this for a year, as intense as it will be equivalent to a couple of years of on-the-job training in that stuff, okay? Now, in addition to that, you're going to supplement that with actual on-the-job training, which will make this more valuable, okay? And because of that, my guess is, at least I know this for one firm, which is the firm I work with, AQR, master's students we hire typically at the associate level, not the analyst level. So it also means a bump up. So in terms of that lost year of seniority, it kind of puts you on the same path that you would have been. And I think with better skills, okay? Plus, as I said, more versatile and with a degree. So with that, I'm going to stop. Let me see if there's any questions, right? We have time for questions, don't we? And I'm happy to stay up here. And then if Emily can walk you through any specifics on the application process for those that want them. Yes?
Just have a quick question about the courses. How would you take that remotely if you were starting a job?
I don't believe you can take them remotely. That's a good question. Let me think about that. I don't know what the rules are at Yale in terms of physically being here on campus. There are no part-time programs, so I don't know how they would view that. That's a good question. I will say this. If you happen to miss a class for an excused absence, we do typically film them and tape them, but we can't tape every class and let people take them remotely. I think that's the rule, but we can double check on that. Anjani will know for sure.